You can hear it, can't you? That specific, heavy silence that falls in a room after a long and brutal reign has finally, abruptly, ended. It's not a peaceful quiet. It's a vacuum, a collective holding of breath, a landscape littered with the debris of power. And into that silence, always, someone new steps forward. But what happens when the one who steps forward isn't a rival king or a vengeful underling, but the very system that was meant to be powerless against him? This is the story of an ending so improbable, so bureaucratically mundane, that it changed the rules of the game forever. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Underworld Kings, The Rise and Fall. Welcome, everyone, to a very special milestone, episode 50. It's a privilege to have you here with me. For those who are new, a little about me. I grew up in Dhaka, Bangladesh, surrounded by stories of empires and revolutions, and now I work as an engineer and entrepreneur here in New York City. I've always been fascinated by systems, how they're built, how they function, and most compellingly, how they break. And the stories we explore here are the ultimate case studies in system failure, where ambition crashes against the hard walls of human nature and consequence. Today, we're going to the Chicago of the late 1920s. The air is thick with the smell of smoke, whiskey, and money. And presiding over it all is a man we've discussed before, Al Capone. Scarface. His control is absolute. He's not just a gangster, he's an institution. He's corrupted police departments, intimidated city officials, and eliminated his rivals with terrifying efficiency. The city, the public, even the federal government seemed powerless. How do you prosecute a man who has made the normal mechanisms of justice irrelevant? The local courts were in his pocket. Witnesses vanished. Juries were bought or terrified. Capone himself famously said, "I've got nothing but friends." He operated with impunity, a king in a kingdom of his own making. This is where our story pivots, away from the Tommy guns and into the ledgers. Because while the Department of Justice was stymied, a different group of federal men started looking at Capone not as a murderous kingpin, but as a taxpayer. Or, more accurately, a non-taxpayer. The Bureau of Internal Revenue, the precursor to the IRS, began an audit. Their weapon wasn't a warrant for murder, but a subpoena for financial records. Their key figure wasn't a hardened detective, but a bookish, determined agent named Frank Wilson. Wilson and his team embarked on a paper chase of epic proportions, sifting through mountains of canceled checks, bank records, and money order receipts. They were building a case not on who Capone had killed, but on the money he had failed to report. Think about the sheer, beautiful absurdity of this. The most feared man in America, a symbol of violent, lawless power, was ultimately vulnerable not to a bigger, badder gangster, but to a violation of Title 26, Section 145 of the U.S. Code, tax evasion. The case hinged on proving Capone had a taxable income. Since his legitimate income was negligible, they had to prove the income from his illicit operations, bootlegging, gambling, prostitution. They used his own lavish lifestyle against him. The suits, the cigars, the sprawling Florida estate, the bulletproof Cadillac, all became evidence of unreported income. They found a ledger, famously called the Hawthorne Hotel Ledger, that detailed massive profits from gambling operations. They turned his own lieutenants, not by threatening them with murder charges, but with tax charges. It was a masterclass in attacking a fortress not at its strongest, most fortified gate, but at a tiny, overlooked administrative window. The trial itself was a circus, but a calculated one. Capone walked in smiling, confident, believing this was a minor nuisance. The prosecution, however, meticulously presented their paper trail. They showed the jury a man who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but reported nothing. They made the complex simple. This man had income. He did not pay tax on it. That is a crime. The defense's bluster about intimidation and unreliable witnesses faltered against the cold, hard numbers. And in the end, the king was dethroned by accountants. On October 17, 1931, Al Capone was convicted on 5 counts of tax evasion. The sentence, 11 years in federal prison. He would never regain his power. The system, in its most dry, unglamorous form, had found a way. There's a profound lesson here that resonates far beyond the world of organized crime. We often think of power as something that is challenged by a greater, opposing force. A rival army, a heroic figure, a revolution. But sometimes, the most effective dismantling of a corrupt system comes from applying a different, seemingly unrelated system with relentless precision. Capone had built an empire designed to be immune to the traditional laws of crime and punishment. He hadn't adequately fortified it against the laws of finance and bureaucracy. His vulnerability was administrative. It was a failure to file a form. In engineering, we call this a single point of failure. A system can seem invincible, but if it has one critical weakness, and that weakness is exploited, the entire structure collapses. Sitting in my workshop here in New York, looking at the complex systems we build in code and circuitry, I see echoes of this story. We design for obvious threats: the hacker, the server crash, the market shift. But often, it's the unglamorous, overlooked protocol, the forgotten update, the minor compliance rule, the tiny inefficiency that scales into a catastrophic failure that brings things down. Capone's story is the ultimate parable of this. He was watching for rival cars full of gunmen. He never saw the quiet man with the briefcase full of receipts coming. His convictions sent a shockwave through the criminal underworld. It established a new, terrifying precedent. You could beat a murder rap, you could corrupt a mayor, but you could not escape the taxman. The IRS became a permanent, dreaded fixture in the landscape of American crime. It leveled the playing field in a way no police crackdown ever had. It meant that the trappings of success, the very evidence of your power, could become the evidence that imprisoned you. The king had fallen, and in his place stood a new, implacable authority: the form, the ledger, the audit. So, as we mark this 50th episode, I leave you with this thought. The most dramatic endings aren't always explosions. Sometimes, they are the quiet click of a handcuff fastened not after a shootout, but after a verdict read in a courtroom about fiscal year 1924. They are the sound of a gavel affirming that no one, not even a self-made king, operates outside every system. The story of Al Capone's fall is a testament to the fact that in the architecture of power, the most mundane beam can bear the most weight. And when it's removed, everything comes crashing down. Thank you for listening. This has been Underworld Kings: The Rise and Fall, a production of Light Not Studios.